All right. So today we are going to discuss, I have a buyer, now what? So I get this question a lot. I'm not even coming at this from a market center tech trainer perspective, right? I am still a realtor. I've had to go through working with a buyer. I know there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and that a lot of people have questions about that. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Essentially, we're just going to go through this checklist that I've compiled. If there's anything you guys see that you would want to add, let's add it in. And then at the end, we're going to share this checklist, and you guys feel free to edit it. So the one thing I will tell you is that once I do share this link with you and you open the Google Drive file, you're going to want to click File and then make a copy. And that's how you're going to be able to edit this for yourself. And unless anybody has any questions, we're going to go ahead and get started. Ready to go? All right. So we have a buyer. It doesn't matter if this buyer says, yes, I do want to buy, but I have credit issues. It's going to be 6 months or a year until I get that resolved. Or if they're like, I'm ready to go, I have to move to the area, let's get on the ball. We still want to add that contact in command. So that's always going to be our first step, because although there are many pieces in command that you don't have to use, the pieces that you do have to use are creating opportunities for your clients so that you can turn in that paperwork for compliance and so that you can do your commission requests. So if you meet a buyer, the first thing that you're going to want to do is add that contact in command. Make sure that you're adding at minimum their name and email address, but hopefully you have a lot more than that. Building relationships with people is what we do as real estate agents. So, you know, their children's names, their pet names, other family members that are part of their immediate circle, making sure that we're tagging these contacts is super important, right? Because you want to be able to segment out your database to reach out to specific sets of people, right? So does anybody have any questions about adding the contact in command? Everybody's feeling good with that? Trying to keep an eye on you guys on my right-hand side. This is where your shining faces are. All right, good deal. So next up, we're going to move into creating an opportunity and a saved search for this contact. So these are only recommendations. You do not have to follow these exactly. It's just a general consensus among KW agents that I've had conversations with. If the contact is buying in 3 months plus, right? Yes, I want to move. It's going to be in December. 3 months plus, you're going to really create that opportunity in the cultivate phase. And to drill down further than that, if they're 9 months plus, I would really put them in cultivate in the watch stage. And then 3 to 9 months cultivate in the nurture stage. And if they're 0 to 3 months, you can go ahead and put them in that hot cultivate stage. Does anybody have any questions on that? Makes sense? Good deal. So if they're ready to go, let's go ahead and set them into the appointment phase and get everything ready for your appointment. You're going to want to share your app link. If you don't know where to find your app link, you're going to go into command. You're going to click on the consumer applet, which is the last one on the left. It looks like this picture here. Go into your site and app settings, and then you can look up your app code. So it should be app.kw.com/KW, and then you have an identifying marker for yourself as an agent. Does anybody have any questions on that part?
Would it work the same, Monica, if you just sent them your app through your mobile phone?
Yeah, you can send it through, you know, you can go into your app, click the more button and click share. The code comes through a little bit different there. And I always feel like that's extra step. So what I've actually done is just gone through and taken my app code and I've attached it like in my email signature. I have it saved in my notes on my phone. So if anybody ever needs it, I can just copy that link and shoot it to them. So it saves me the extra step of getting into my own app, hitting the more button, hitting the share button, And then, of course, that's a consumer app. So it says, I work with my agent, Monica Perry, right? And then you have to delete out all that text. So in lieu of doing all that, I actually just take that code and save it to my phone somewhere, right? Any questions on that? Everybody good? Good deal. Okay, so we can also set up saved searches for our buyers in Command. So these are great. They come through in our emails. Let me get into a fake email account. Somehow it signed me out of all of them, of course. Probably should have checked that. Go into Mr. Dakota James. For those of you who haven't met me, Dakota is one of my dogs, and he and my other dog are my biggest clients. They have their own Gmail accounts, and they sign documents for me by myself, but you know, so you know. Okay, I don't want to do all this. I just want to log into his account. Sorry about that, guys. I should have logged into this before. I want you to see what these saved searches look like, because they are really nice. The client can control the frequency with which they get the updates to their search, and you can also control the frequency with which they get these. So let me see.
Monica, are you finding that the searches are accurate, that the information is being pulled over accurately?
Yeah, so I mean, here's one right here, one update in a map area that I drew. So it's a new property for sale. So when they hit the MLS, I think it's about a 15 to 30 minute buffer, and then it will push out to KW's apps, and then it'll shoot out these really nice looking saved search results. So this is what it looks like on a computer in their email. They also get those push notifications if they're using the app on their cell phones. It will come through as a push notification. They can see that there's a new listing, and when they click on it, it will actually open your app on their phone so that they can see the new listing. Does anybody have any questions on that? Good. I'm going to close some of this stuff because apparently it's telling me that my computer's got too much stuff running and that my audio quality might not be good. Can you guys all hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Very good. All right. So save searches, super nice, super important to set up for your people. It makes them feel like you're reaching out to them all the time as soon as something new comes out. So that's a really good thing. The number one complaint that we get from consumers for agents is a lack of communication. So we don't ever want to let that be an issue, especially when we're in the midst of a transaction, right? We always want to be making sure that we are giving them information in many different forms and fashions so that they feel like they are being kept in the loop. So now that we have created that opportunity and set up some safe searches for the client, we've shared our app link and made sure that they've downloaded the app and created an account, right? If you don't want them to have to create an account, one thing that I like to show people is you can just go to your own website and you can sign up for them. And this will also create them a contact within your Command account, which is cool. And then you can add to it, say Betsy Buyer, you know, betsybuyer.com. And you can just set up something like capital P password 1 for them, right? And so then you can say, hey, Betsy, here's a link to download my app. Here is your login information. Once you get into the app, feel free to go through and change your password. Because remember, if they don't create an account within your app or on your mobile site, on your website, you will not be able to track the activities that they're doing in Command. And that's one of the best parts, right? Is that we can go into our contact card and we can see what they're doing. So think about those people that said that they were 9 months out. If we've gone in and set them up some saved searches and put them on the monthly neighborhood nurture, and then all of a sudden we see a whole lot happening within their activity, right? Then we might know that they're getting ready to move. Maybe they know that their credit score is increased and they're getting ready to be pre-approved for a loan. So you want to really make sure that you can see all of their activity in their contact card and all the things that they're doing. And you can't do that if they haven't created an account. So if you don't feel confident in them doing it, you can do it for them the way that I just showed you. Does anybody have any questions on that? Creating it for them?
Can you give everybody the same password?
Yeah, because you want them to change it once they get in. So just a very generic, I've always used capital P ASS word, the number 1, and said, this is your login information. Once you're in, go into the settings and change your password to whatever you would like for it to be. Yep, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions about that? We good? Awesome. Very cool. And that being said, one of the best ways to look at your contacts is, let me take Dakota's name out. You have this recently active filter, so you can actually, sort by that. So when is the last time that they were active? And this will show you what they're doing. So that way you can see who's had recent activity within your contacts, because it may be a cue for you to reach out to them. Right. All right. Good deal. All right. So next up, preparing our buyer packet. So yes, the first time that you create your buyer packet, it's going to take a little bit of time if you haven't done it before, right? But once you have it created, you now have a template that you can just go through and customize to that particular set of buyers, take some pages out, add some pages in, whatever you would like. But I highly recommend that you take the time to set one of these up. And granted, it is going to depend on who is your audience, right? If you're talking to a Monica, I'm very fast paced. And if you try to hand me a piece of paper that's got a bunch of lists on it, I'm going to be like, let's just go, right? But you're going to have some really detail oriented people that want to see all of that stuff in their buyer packet. Okay. So it's always a good idea to have it with you. And plus, if it's a couple, you might have the real high D that's like, let's just move. And then the wife may be a very detail-oriented person that wants that takeaway. So make sure that you always have it as an option, whether it's digital or paper, make sure that you always have a buyer presentation available. So in order to make one of those, you're going to go into designs, or you can make it yourself. If you're a whiz with the computer, not a problem. You're going to choose print design. And on the left-hand side, expand buyer folder, select buyer presentation, choose your template, and go through and make those edits. And then, like I said, once you have that done to your liking, you can literally just change out the names on the front page, right? Unless there's something really specific, like if you have a luxury buyer, you might want to set up a different template for them. But otherwise, you can just use it pretty much across the board. Good? Awesome. All right. So this is where I'm going to try not to get on my soapbox here, but I cannot stress the importance enough of having a very well thought out buyer consultation, especially in this market, right? This market is moving fast. We are in multiple offers. Things are going for much above asking price. It's slowing down some. It hasn't slowed down a ton. So those are conversations that you really need to have. And this is one thing I preached at last month when I taught the same class. And then lo and behold, KW sent out this, if you have not subscribed to Outfront Weekly, they send this out every month. So go to outfront.kw.com, a little pop-up will come up that says, do you want to subscribe to Outfront Weekly? And you will get these really great articles from KWRI. So this is preaching exactly what I said. 7 tips to help your buyer land their dream home, right? Create a bigger lead pool. You need to really be putting yourself out there to attract more buyers. Focus on the A buyers, right? The ones that are ready to go now. That's the importance of putting them into the different phases in command, because you don't want to spend as much time with the people that are 9 months out as you're spending on the people that want to move as soon as possible, right? So in order to do that, you need to segment, tag, and really think about your database when you're putting these people in, right? I love this. The perfect offer starts in the first meeting with the buyer, right? Some people call it a buyer consultation. They call it a strategy session. 20% of your time is focused on criteria, right? That's not a big amount. 80% is focused on timeline and motivation, right? So what are the deal breakers, right? Mine were pretty simple when I was buying my own house. I needed a pool, 5 bedrooms, and 1 level. Those were deal breakers if those didn't exist. So that made the search very small. You've got to establish what the deal breakers are, or else you're going to be wasting your time. You really have to establish their motivation. If you find a house that's listed for $225,000, but we have to offer $250,000, are you prepared to do that? If the house is not going to appraise for what the seller is asking for it, are you prepared to make up that difference? Do you have that cushion of money, or will that be a deal breaker, right? If you don't know those things, then you can lead yourself into an area of wasting a whole lot of time. So first and foremost, I wouldn't have anybody in my car or following me to go look at houses without a mortgage pre-approval in place. So that is the first thing that you want to ask in your buyer consultation. Have you spoken with the lender? Are you already pre-approved? I saw somebody ask in one of the private Facebook groups the other day if they're pre-approved with, like a Rocket Mortgage. Do you try to talk them out of that? I saw somebody ask that on Facebook. I wouldn't necessarily try to talk them out of that. I would go over the importance of communication with our lender, that I do have some local lenders if you would like to explore them as an option, and that we have Keller Mortgage. Please don't forget to offer Keller Mortgage as a lender option to your clients. Even if they don't use it, that's fine. I've heard horror stories of someone finding out about Keller Mortgage after the fact, and they found out they could save like $6,500 or something. So that client was pretty upset, as you can imagine, that their agent didn't tell them about our own product. So make sure that you're, giving all of those options. But I strongly advise against taking people out to see property that are not pre-approved, because of the way the market's moving right now. Especially, I wouldn't do it even in the down market. And the way the market's moving right now, if they can't make an offer on that house this afternoon, right after you show it to them, then why are you looking at it? Because it's going to go under contract. So, setting up those expectations in your buyer consultation, it's a fine line. You have to have a candid but pleasant conversation, right? You have to walk that line of care and candor with your people to let them know what the market is, how it's working right now. Multiple offers are happening. If this, then that situation, so that you really know, like, even if they're qualified up to 350,000, you might only want to be looking at houses in the 300 to 325,000 range in case it goes into multiple offers, right? So the market of the moment, that's one of the things that we have to definitely account for in these buyer consultations. Does anybody have any questions about that? 20%, right, is about what they want in their house. 80% is timelines and expectations. Discussing due diligence period, due diligence money. What does it mean? What is a due diligence date, right? Those are very important things. So when you're in that buyer consultation, your number one goal is to secure that client. And by securing the client, I mean going ahead and getting the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure done, giving them that Q&A that came out this year, and then getting the actual disclosure signed that says that you gave them the brochure this year, and trying to get that buyer agency agreement signed. Making sure that you're really having a great conversation about what does that buyer agency mean. No, they're not paying you in most cases. I know some agents may do a retainer fee. but that really your money's coming from the seller, and that buyer agency agreement is not only there to protect them, most importantly as your buyer, but yourself too as an agent. So try to get those two things signed at your first appointment. That being said, you need to have that stuff ready to go, right? They don't want to sit there and wait for you to fill out these documents. Go ahead and fill them out in DocuSign or Zip Forms or .loop or whichever method you like to use. Go ahead and have it ready. If they're like, I want to sign these in person, great, I've got it ready. Let me just print that and we'll get it signed in ink. Or you could actually host a DocuSign in-person signing if you were comfortable with that, right? Most important thing is go ahead and get those things signed. If they already have a pre-approval from a lender, make sure that you get a copy of that. And other documents that I like to get at a buyer consultation is I get a copy of their driver's license for safety of myself. And if they are a cash buyer, make sure that you go ahead and get a proof of funds because you will need that with your offer. Does anybody have any questions about that? Feeling
Not
good?
that, but Monica, quick question. With Keller Mortgage, does Keller Mortgage do anything with new construction, or is it just existing properties?
No, I think that you can do new construction with them, and you don't ever forget about refinancing either. For your past clients or just your sphere of influence, we just refinanced this house earlier this year and actually rolled in a home equity that we had, and it ended up saving us $800 a month. And then on top of that, they called us the week before last week, because we were on vacation last week, and said that they could lower our interest rate again. And so they're actually doing that again, which is going to make our monthly payment even less, and all that kind of fun stuff. So definitely don't discount it for that. But on my website, kwtriadtech.com, I do have a straight link to Keller Mortgage. So you can go there and have any questions that you want answered. And I'm happy to drop the guy that I've been using is Joe. And you can log into this Keller Mortgage portal. I think you may have to use your KW email address, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time ago when I said
I believe you do. Yep.
So if you don't have that, anybody, feel free to ask me how to get that. But yeah, you can go in there, and I mean, I think that you would be able to do new construction, especially with KW New Homes rolling out, that new division that we've created. I'm sure that they're going to tailor things out to accommodate.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. All right, good deal. So buyer consultation done. Turn in your buyer active checklist in your command. You're good to go. Move on to your search, right? So while we should do save searches for our clients in command, us as agents really need to be going into the MLS. MLS is real time. When somebody makes the change is there. Houses are flying off of the market. I know that some people are like, I've got 5 things scheduled, and by the end of the day, I only get to show my client 1, right? So you really need to be on top of MLS and looking in there. So study MLS for houses matching your client's needs and wants. Select a couple of those to share. Be mindful they're not staying on the market for long. So you may need to adjust up the number of houses that you're scheduling to show, just in case some fall under contract before you make it there. You're going to schedule your appointment and showing time. So if you guys are not familiar with showing time, make sure that you check that out. There is a link in the MLS to showing time. I also gave you the link right here on this form. So, and make sure that you guys provide feedback on your listing appointments, y'all, on your showings. Always give your fellow agents feedback. It's the right thing to do. All right, so let's prepare to make an offer. I get questions about this a lot. Yes, it is the listing agent's responsibility to disclose material facts, right? Of course it is. And it is your fiduciary duty to your client to follow up on what that listing agent said, because they're not always right. Right? When I bought this house, it was listed as having a gas water heater. And there were a couple of other things that were wrong. And when I first moved in, I went to take a shower. Water was cold. I called Piedmont Natural Gas and was like, I thought my gas was already turned on. And they were like, it is turned on. And so I'm thinking that, you know, my water heater is not working. No, it was electric and it needed to be reset, and it was in the crawl space. So, right. And it was disclosed on the property disclosure that it was gas. And I think maybe even the home inspection, I used a pre-home inspection. I didn't get my own, but nonetheless, that was wrong. So it is our duty to go behind and check all of that out, right? Pulling tax records, pulling deeds, liens, restrictive covenants for a neighborhood, homeowners association information, surveys, plat maps, any of the things that you can find in conjunction with the listing that you're trying to put an offer on for your clients, you need to be pulling it up, right? So if the listing agent did not attach the disclosures in MLS, one of the first things you want to do is reach out to them and get your hands on those disclosures prior to signing your offer. Does anybody have any questions on that? This is it's a little piece of the document, but it's a big deal. So just remember, it's our job to find all this information. So if you ever have any questions on that, please reach out. I linked to Stephen Long, who is the broker in charge in Winston-Salem's office. This should look very familiar to you guys because you sign it and say that you did it, right? So these are all the things a prudent broker in North Carolina should do and understand are their responsibility. So it's a whole list, right? We have that Beltway. Check the NC Department of Transportation maps for proposed road expansions, projects, beltways, right? So there's a whole list of stuff that we should be checking. Anybody have any questions? Feeling good? I tried to give you guys lots of information. All right. So making an offer. Make sure that in command you are changing your opportunities to their correct phases and stages. If you keep an opportunity in anything before active, your compliance coordinators and your MCAs that give us money, and we love them, can't find it. So make sure that you're changing the phase and stage of your opportunity to reflect where you actually are in the transaction. Does anybody have any questions on that? Good? Okay. So you want to make sure that you've already turned in that earlier section of your buyer document, so that right now all we're working on is that active buyer offer. So the checklist will show you. So when you move into the opportunity, it's created, you've chosen buyer, you move into the documents tab. Over on the left-hand side, there's a drop down where you pick your checklist type. Are you offering on vacant land, a residential property, commercial, right? What is this transaction? If you don't know yet with a buyer, I would more than likely go with residential if you don't know if it's going to be residential or new construction, because the residential file has a lot more documents in it that could be used. Now, that will be your checklist of what is required for you to turn into your compliance officers. So you will see little demarcations that show you, is it required? Is it conditionally required? Or is it not required at all? So you need to make sure that you're looking out for those. And I do apologize for the internet being so slow here today. I don't know it was working fine until I was teaching, because that's how technology goes, isn't it? All right, here we go. Let me get this opportunity open. So you will see when you move into your documents tab of an opportunity, you're going to pick a checklist type over here on the left. I'm going to go ahead and choose residential. And so right now we're in that consultation folder. Working with real estate agents and buyer agency agreement are required. This is Winston-Salem's checklist, by the way, not Greensboro's. Just so you know, these are the two required documents. If they have this DocuSign chip and you are a DocuSign user, when you click start a transaction in DocuSign, anything that I have chipped is automatically going to be added into that room for you. Right, so I didn't choose every single document. I only chose the ones that I knew would be required for most transactions. But you'll see that once I log into DocuSign and that room opens up, it has already added those forms for me. So I did this for both market centers, Greensboro and Winston-Salem. Right, so anything that you see with that check, that DocuSign chip right there. So in your under contract folder, that's really your big one. You can see this MLS sheet, offer to purchase, your receipt of monies, page 15, property disclosures, mineral oil and gas rights. You've got notes over here on the left if it's required or if it's conditional, right? Residential property disclosure, it's only exempt if it's vacant land, foreclosure, or new construction. Otherwise, you need to turn it in, right? So it's got notes there that show you what you need. Does anybody have any questions there? Good? Good deal. All right. So I want to touch on forms. Where do I get my forms? Because I get that question a lot also. We can get our forms out of DocuSign, which we all get as KW agents. If you are in a market center that is providing you with .loop, then you can get your forms out of .loop. Any North Carolina broker can go to NC Realtors. If you're a realtor, which we all are as of this point, you can go to NC Realtors. You can log in with your NRDS or your NERDS number. And if you don't know what that is, you can click this link to find out. And you can get all your forms from there, right? So we also get zip forms for part of our membership dues. So there are multiple ways that you can go get your forms. I always recommend that you know what those ways are in case, you know, technology happens. Something could be down, a site could go down. Just know that you have options. So like if DocuSign stopped working, don't freak out. You have lots of other ways that you can go get your forms. Anybody have any questions on that? We good? Awesome. So I also included on here directions for doing in-person signing with DocuSign. I get a lot of questions on that. People want to have their laptop in their meeting and pull up the forms and write out the offer and sign it on the spot. So there are the directions for how to do that there. Good deal. Everybody's feeling good? All right. Next up, offer got accepted. You're moving into due diligence. Congrats, right? First thing up, check the MLS for that status change and make sure that that listing agent, because they all get busy, as we all know, might forget, make sure that they change that into due diligence, save that agent full version of that MLS sheet. You will need to turn that in for compliance. You will then need to add your offer in command and accept it. And here's a link that shows you exactly how to do that. That's how you'll be able to move on to your next step and submit for your commission request when it's time to close. Good? All right. You guys, please stop me if you have any questions. Make sure that your buyer understands due diligence. NC Rec put out this Q&A on due diligence brochure. You can buy these if you want the super fancy folded glossy versions, or there's a link to it right here. You can open it up and print that out and share it with your folks. Due diligence is a big deal here in North Carolina. So you want to make sure that you are explaining all of this to your clients, right? So there's that for you. Add that due diligence date to all of your calendars. Remember, if your buyer walks away, even at 5:01 on the day that due diligence expires, they are not due a refund of their earnest money. So make sure that you add that due diligence date to all of your calendars. I even like to do like a countdown that says due diligence expires in 5 days. That way, maybe I know, if the appraisal didn't get done yet, if the loan isn't approved yet, maybe I need to file for a due diligence extension, right? So that is super duper important. Super important to make sure that you remember that due diligence date. You want to start ordering all of your inspections. I did attach a PDF of the professional services disclosure. It's a sample copy, and we really should be giving this and providing it to our buyers so that they can see everything that can happen in conjunction as far as service providers go when they're purchasing a house. And make sure that you get that thing filled out correctly, y'all. It's there for your protection, right? So make sure, I think I highlighted that down there for you. That's a super important form, and it's a working form. So it's not necessarily going to be completely finished right when we make an offer on a house, right? Because you may have the inspector come out and he says that the roof needs to be inspected. So then you have a roofer come out, and then you have to keep adding all these different people that did these services to that form. So in most offices, it's not due until closing. With your closing folder. So just make sure that you're giving that sample, explaining what it means, and getting it filled out. We are supposed to attend our buyers' inspections as agents, right? So keep that in mind. You're going to get those inspection reports, and you're going to discuss those with your folks. I do want to take this moment to keep in mind, I know this is a lot that we're going through, and so imagine it for your client, right? We do this every day. Eventually, if you guys are newer, you're going to be doing this a lot over and over and over again, and this stuff just kind of becomes rote memorization, and you just do it inherently. But remember, for your buyer, more than likely, they don't do that very often. So this is a lot for them too. So making sure that we're offering that communication and really keeping them in the loop. And one of the ways that you can do that is through your checklist or your guides, I apologize, on your agent site and within your app. If you have not gone through and updated these, I actually taught on this a few months, 2 months ago, I think. I'm just going to log in as Dakota so you guys can see what it looks like. So once somebody is signed in, they actually have guides. So this is the buying guide. It's got an intro, getting pre-approved. I added some of these steps. This is a step that I added myself so that I could add in my local lenders and people that I like to use. This is a step that was already added for us. If you don't like it, you can delete it, right? So if your client has this in their hand or on their computer and they have questions, this is one of the places they can seek those answers. Because one thing, and I was very guilty of it, my clients need to be able to get in touch with me at all times, 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. I don't care. They need to be able to call me. It's not that they needed us, it's that they needed information or confirmation of something that they have a question on. So the more ways that we can offer that information, the more comfortable our clients will feel. So if you haven't taken the time to edit out these guides to yourself, I do recommend that you do that. Does anybody have any questions on that? They can mark these steps as completed as they're moving through if they want to. And you can see that from their side and your side. Okay. Just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about that. All right. So we are then going to make sure that we're scheduling out our closing attorney. Some of the stuff is very self-explanatory and you guys will have this sheet. But as you can see, it is a lot. So I wanted to make sure that I laid it out for you guys. If this offer falls through, which a lot of them do, right? Home inspection comes back bad, appraisal doesn't come through, whatever it is, that is not a new opportunity in command. That is a new purchase for the same buyer, which is the same opportunity. So you do not have to go through and create a new opportunity in command. You do a drop down of the checklist right here, and you create a new version, right? You've already turned in this consultation folder and all that stuff's approved. So in your under contract folder, you'll just go through and add a new version. And this is now my offer on 567 Maple. And I can create that new version. I'll get a clean checklist. I can add all of my new documents to it. I can still toggle back to that original one because I'm supposed to keep those documents anyway, right, as an agent. With this new exporting documents feature that I mentioned earlier today at the Winston-Salem team meeting, this exporting documents is super cool. You can password protect them. If you wanted to, you know, say you did have to make an offer and it fell through and you just wanted to save those in that buyer's folder somewhere, you could actually export your old set of documents. There's the old documents version, the stuff from your custom folders. You can select all of the documents and password protect them. You can send them directly to a client, which means that you can look them up from command, like so. You can add people in, right, and create them right here if you needed to send it to the closing attorney or the lender. So this exporting of documents is super cool, but just make sure that you don't go through and create yourself a new opportunity for the same person. It's just a time waster. You don't have to do that. Any questions on that? I get asked that quite a bit. Good deal. Cool. Pending status. At this point, you want to go ahead and submit your commission in command. And here's a link to an article that shows you exactly how to do that. So earlier, we went ahead and added that offer and we accepted the offer, which gave us the ability to manage our commission. At the time that you go pending, that is the time to go ahead and submit your commission in command. If you have any questions about this, I'm actually teaching Show Me the Money on Thursday at 3. And I will be going over turning in all of our documents for compliance. How do we do our commissions? How do we submit that commission tab, et cetera? Okay. Again, we're checking MLS for that status change to pending and saving a copy of that MLS sheet and getting a list of utilities. I was notorious for forgetting to do this for my buyers. Get that list of utilities. Is it Duke Energy, right? Do they use Piedmont Natural Gas? Who's provided the cable there? If they're a DirecTV user and it was Time Warner Spectrum or whatever they call it now at that house, and they want to get DirecTV, you guys need to get that kind of stuff scheduled for them. So do that for your client or with your client because that makes them feel really special. So just make sure that you cover all of those utilities and get those transfers set up and ready to go. Make sure that your buyer gets their homeowner's insurance in place, right? Get that final walkthrough scheduled and complete that professional services disclosure. Who performed the service? You need to fill that in. Don't just say TBD. Who performed the home inspection? Who did the radon? Who did the pest inspection? If your client said, I don't need a radon test, you better have them initial that box that say that they waived it. Because if they come back at you in 3 years and say, well, you never told me that I needed to have radon tested. Yes, I did. Here's my form. You waived it on this date. It's right here, right? That is for your own protection. Lots of people will be like, I don't need to get a survey. Then they go to install their fence and the neighbor's like, you're 3 feet over onto my property. You can't put that there. Well, if they had gotten a survey done, then they would have recourse. If they did not, they do not, right? So do not skip that form. It's super important. All right, for closing, final walkthrough, you're going to attend the closing with them. Make sure you get a copy of that signed closing disclosure. Pick up your check, right? Or have it mailed, depending on how much you need that commission check. Add all of your closing documents to command and submit them for review. In most market centers, if you turn your check in by noon, all of your documents have already been approved prior to your closing documents. Your commission's been turned in and approved. You should be able to get paid that day. in most market centers, right? I'm not going to say all market centers, but most market centers. But that's the importance of turning our documents in along the way so that you don't just like bombard the compliance officer with 37 documents the day that you close, and then you're like, I want my check, because they haven't had a chance to look through your documents. To reiterate the importance of turning in your documents in a timely fashion, this is a true story. It happened about 4 years ago. Somebody turned in their documents round about this time of year, and everything, I think it was actually in September, everything was done on the previous year's documents. Well, guess what? They were past the time that was allowable. The house was closed, the buyers were moving in, and they had to go back and get all of the documents re-signed because those were not valid documents because they weren't the right year. If they had turned their documents in ahead of time, somebody would have caught it and said, oh, you're working in last year's documents. Let's go ahead and get you a new one, right? Let's get you the new set of documents. So I don't ever want that to happen to you guys. So turn your documents in as you go. If you have any questions on documents, ask. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You have leadership teams that we are here to help you. That is our sole purpose. And without you guys, we wouldn't have jobs. So we appreciate all of you and we want to help you. Okay. So does anybody have any questions on that part?
I do.
Go ahead.
So Monica, when we create our opportunity in Command, as far as building out our new documents as to what's required for each one, I know you've already tagged some of those as DocuSign. How often do we go back and actually check to ensure we've got the most current documents?
So the documents renew only once a year, July 1st, right? And so I've already updated all of the forms in DocuSign in both market centers. And if you're in Greensboro's market center, Dotloop has also been updated because I know that Greensboro has some people that use Dotloop. I've gone through in Winston-Salem, I know, and these links right here, like this offer to purchase is underlined, you can actually click on it and get a blank version. So I know that I personally went through and upgraded all these to the 2021 versions. If you ever needed to click through on one of those just for a quick print or something. But yeah, I mean, really, it's this time of year. It's right when those documents expired. If you had gotten a buyer agency sign with somebody in March, right? And now they're buying now, and then it doesn't close until November, that buyer agency is now no longer valid, right? So it's kind of those that you have to watch out for. Listing agreements, same thing. If you listed it, not that would happen in this market, but if you listed it in February and the documents renewed in July, and then the listing doesn't close until November, you need to have a new version of that listing agreement signed.
Okay.
Good deal?
That's pretty good. So then I guess my next question would be, so once I've actually, if I use DocuSign to send my documents over to my client goes through with DocuSign, signs everything, so everything's done in DocuSign. What's the easiest way to get that back into Command?
Yeah, so it should be connected. So we'll actually just take this and the buyer agency. I did not mean to open that document. Let me close it. There we go. So I'll just send these off real quick for signatures. And if you guys want really good DocuSign tips and tricks, Shannon, I think you were in the last time that I taught that class. I'm doing DocuSign not this Friday, but next Friday, I believe. And I typed Shannon because I was saying Shannon's name. But that DocuSign tips and tricks class is pretty good too, if you want some time savers.
That's great.
Let me add a recipient from pre-tagged roles, buyer one. I'm just going to have one person sign so that you can see what it looks like, because I need to have the actual signed documents to do this. Just give this a second. So if you do not have DocuSign connected in Command, please make sure that you get with me on making sure that that's done. I'm going to go ahead and send these off. And they're going to go into Dakota's Gmail. This thing is just being weird on Gmail today. Usually I can just toggle back and forth between the two. So we'll have Mr. Dakota sign these documents. And hit refresh. And this internet's just moving at a snail's pace today. Let me see here. Go ahead and get these signed. Just really quick. There we go. All right. So now that he has signed those in DocuSign, this will say it's completed. And if our DocuSign is appropriately connected to Command, once we see these signed documents show back up in the room, remember it will keep your original form version, and then you will get the signed copies to show up alongside of those. You do have folders, and I will discuss all that stuff with you. There's the signed copies. So back in Command, I should now be able to add a file from DocuSign. And there's that working with real estate agents that was signed.
Okay.
And I signed.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you don't have that connection made, then you would just have to download it and save it to your computer and upload it. So neither one's wrong, because I know a lot of people wanted to keep using zip forms with DocuSign the way that we used to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. You just save the forms to your computer and upload them into Command to turn them in.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions. All right. So then we're going to turn in those closing documents. We're almost at the end. But one of the biggest things, I'm guilty, that people in real estate don't do is stay in touch with our people after closing. Funny, but true. So true, right? I think it's like, I don't know, 88% of people say that they would use the same real estate agent again, but like 40% of people actually do it. And whose fault is that? It's not the people's, it's the real estate agents, because we don't stay in touch. So after you close, that's not the end. Add their new address to their contact card in Command. Make sure that you add their new neighborhood to them and keep them on that monthly neighborhood nurture smart plan so they can see what's happening in their area. A lot of people, I have my brother on one of these plans, and he was in Huntersville, and he was like, this thing can't be right. He was like, the house down the street sold for like $150,000 more than what we bought these houses for. And I was like, it's probably right. And so I talked to an agent in the Charlotte Market Center, and they were like, yep, that's true. And so now my brother's like, maybe I might want to sell my house. Even though he wasn't really thinking about selling his house, now he's like, I might want to sell my house, right?
But where do you move?
Yeah, I mean, that's
the problem.
Right? Stay in touch with these people. Give them that information, because you never know when it's going to spark somebody to make a move. Add their home anniversary to their contact card and put them on the home anniversary smart plan. And until they move, every year on their home anniversary, you should be sending them a handwritten card that says, congratulations on 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, right? And so on and so forth. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Put them on all your future client events. Add any other pertinent information you learned. Maybe when you hung out with them, you found out that they love, I don't know, Yankees baseball. Maybe you can send them, something that's Yankees related if you see it in a store. Little things like that are the building blocks of our relationships with people, right? The more that we know about people, the more details that we put into our clients, and no, we can't remember every single person. I think there's like, I don't know, 1,400 people in my personal side of Command contacts. But the more that I add into the contact, then when I go to call them, the key is that you are using your database. When you're making your calls, you should have the people in front of you. So then you can say, oh, I know that Brian's starting school next Monday. Is he excited to be back in person? That makes somebody feel really, really special that you remembered their son's name and that you know that school starts next week, right? Little things like that make all the difference in our relationships with people. So use these contacts when you're making your phone calls and add that stuff in there. Continue that relationship with frequency and intensity of communication, just like it says in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? That's the key. And don't forget about the infinite loop sales cycle. Those of you that have attended my trainings before have heard me say it over and over and over. I did give you this Millionaire Real Estate Agent 2 sales funnel. Hopefully we'll get that MREA 2 released soon so that we can all look at it. The fundamentals didn't change, just some numbers, statistics, and methods, such as social media, which wasn't really a thing back then. But that never-ending infinite loop sales cycle, right? We drop them in, we cultivate them, we put them through the sales pipeline, they close, post-close, we put them back up into contacts and start connecting and offering them new interactive and value-based touch programs. Forever and ever, amen. They might come back to you for a move-up home or a downsize home or a vacation home, or because their neighbor now wants to sell their home or their coworker wants to buy a home. But if you're not staying in touch with them, they will not remember to send those people to you, right? So make sure that you have those follow-up plans in place. Staircases of opportunity, you're going to see that start showing up in some of my training. The ever wonderful Jason Abrams brought that up on a call one day, and I love it. It's such a great thought process. So I'll give you guys more details on that soon, but it's the way that everything works nowadays. Amazon, Facebook, staircases of opportunity, and then you drop the person into the next one and the next one and the next one. So I'll throw that into a training upcoming. But that takes us to the end of today. So as you can see, this wasn't really tech related, a couple of pieces sprinkled in. This is really just how you handle the business of a buyer. Tomorrow, we are going to go over the same thing on the seller side. Listings are a little bit more intense in the beginning phases than buyers are. Buyers are more intense in the ending phases. So, very similar pathway, but just a little bit different in the forms of nuances. So let me go into the chat. I'm going to hand you guys this link. Don't forget that when you open up this link to make yourself a copy, feel free to edit this out to your business. If there's stuff in there that you do, which is very likely that I don't do, add it in there for yourself, right? And essentially, don't forget that in Command, in our opportunities, we have checklists that you can add these things to. And when our new task applet releases, it's going to be really, really nice. It's going to have a lot of new bells and whistles. And these checklists that exist here in your opportunities, you can see my checklist for each opportunity here. You can edit these, you can add to them. And once they are added to a specific opportunity, you can actually set due dates, and then they will then show up in your tasks on your home screen. You can choose whether or not to include it in your client update emails, which is cool. And if you guys have not seen the client update emails, they look like this. Let's see. Let me find one. I know I have it. You can see where I shared offers with him. Oh my goodness. I know that I just saw one in here. Anyway, it says we're checking things off the list. Let me search for it. If you guys aren't using these client updates, there we go. So we're checking things off the list. Here's a summary of tasks that were completed for your buying guide, selling, whichever. Again, one of the biggest complaints real estate agents get is a lack of communication. So if you're using your checklist and you have a client update selected and you have client updates turned on, then when you come in here and say, yes, I did, you know, send a receipt and I did this and I did this, and you check them off, then it will actually email that client and let them know this is what was done in conjunction with your listing today. This is what was done in conjunction with your purchase today. You know, we received the appraisal, we received the home inspection. So they have a running list in email format of what was done for their purchase and or sale, right? So don't miss out on those opportunities. If you have any questions, I do teach specific classes to that too. I think there's some on my YouTube channel, and I'll have another one in the books probably next month. So
Hey,
that being said, does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Monica, what was it Outlook or some kind of thing we could subscribe to get those little like
Out front.
out front?
So outfront.kw.com is where you go for that. And it will say, you know, subscribe to Outfront to get it. And don't forget, guys, I linked all that stuff because I know it so much. Trust me, I joined KW from another firm, gosh, 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. And KW's got a lot of stuff, right? We have a lot of stuff. So I've tried to link all that stuff here, and new stuff keeps rolling out. So the new homes division just came out, KW Maps Coaching, Keller Offers, Keller Covered, Keller Mortgage, the luxury, KW Young Professionals. If you guys haven't looked into joining that, if you're one of our younger agents, KW Commercial has some huge updates coming out. Huge updates are coming out with KW Commercial as well as KW Land Division. So all that stuff is linked here. Outfront's linked here.
Oh, okay.
And if you guys haven't been visiting answers.kw.com, that's essentially the Google of our technology. So if you're like, I want to create a smart plan, you can go to answers.kw.com. Looks like this. It's got some stuff highlighted here in the front, and you can actually type smart plan, and it's going to give you suggestions and all that kind of fun stuff here. And you can go through and look. And then also on here, I have it all linked. So if you're trying to learn more about smart plans and you click on that little icon, it will take you to all things smart plans in answers.kw.com.
I think you're right. There is so much that they offer. Sometimes your head just explodes and you don't know what to do. So this was a good refresher. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Anybody else have any questions? All right, guys. Thank you all for coming today. It was good to see all your sweet faces.
Thanks, Monica.
You're welcome. Let me know if I can do anything to help you guys. I'm
Thank
here
you,
for you.
Monica.
Bye, guys.